Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I'm here today to do a Friday Reads video where I wrap up the week in reading and talk about any bookish things that have gone on in the world. I don't have a whole lot to talk about this week because I'm filming this video early, which means I don't think there's really going to be a whole lot of chatty portion before, so I am not going to really put a timestamp down below so you can jump. I think we're going to move to Friday Reads pretty quickly, but I should say as a PSA, Joel is in the kitchen baking because I am filming this on Wednesday night. I finally wrapped up work for the week and am looking at a couple of days off, so I wanted to film two videos that I can schedule through the weekend and through Thanksgiving so I can enjoy some time with Joel and Teddy, who just wandered in and is here somewhere. But I can enjoy some time with them without having to worry about filming another video, editing another video, uploading another video, or anything like that. I will say the big book thing that happened this week is we got the New York Times 100 Notable Books of 2024. My reaction video to that will be down below. You can click on that and go through it. We will be getting the top 10 books of the year from the New York Times on December 3rd. So stay tuned for that. I plan to do a whole video as soon as they make the announcement. So that will be coming. The Washington Post released its top 10 books of 2024. My reaction to that will be down below. They also did a 50 notable books of their own this year, and I haven't managed to film a video about it, but I'm planning to, so that will be coming at some point. And that's all of the big book stuff that's happened. You know, at this point, the Booker Prize is done, the National Book Award is done, so we're sort of heading into a bit of a lull in terms of big crazy things. The big news that's going to happen is that we're going to keep getting best of year lists for the year. People are going to start wrapping up their reading. That's always really exciting. I love this time of year. If the holidays are a weird time for you, I totally understand that. But if you are in the United States and you do celebrate Thanksgiving, I will say, since it will have happened at this point, I hope you had a happy day full of good food, good friends, and good chosen family, whether that's your biological family or not. So that's pretty much everything to get into before the Friday Reads video. You had a feeling that would not take a lot of time, and sure enough, it didn't. So let's just move into the Friday Reads portion of the video. And there was one thing I wanted to show you before we get into that. So if you follow along, you know that about a little over a year ago, we got our dog Teddy, who had been found in Yellowstone. And we got him from an organization called Welsh Terrier Cares. They do an annual calendar. So give me a moment. I'll show you what the 2024 calendar looked like. There is the cover, and I just left it on October because Teddy is the face of October. That was him before he actually got his first haircut with us. The person who had found him trimmed him because he had really long and muddy hair. And that was on when we drove him home for the first time. He was a little nervous for about 30 minutes and then he fell asleep on both of our arms. So really cute. So he was in last year's calendar, which means he technically shouldn't have been eligible for this year's calendar. But they asked if they could use a photo of him. So, of course, we had to order another calendar. Well, we had to order a calendar because this is a good organization to support. But also, Teddy is featured in it. He is one of the faces of December. Because in this photo of him, he loves these balls. They're his favorite toy. So in this photo of him, there's a tiny little Christmas tree that actually belonged to Joel's grandmother. I think she even made it. So because of the Christmas tree, he is one of the two faces of December, along with this handsome guy, Winston. So that is a fun thing that came in the mail today. I'm not going to get rid of this one, though, because I love this page and spread. So now let's get into the actual Friday Reads portion of the video. Now, it's been a hectic week, as you can imagine, with Thanksgiving in the United States. But also, it's been a difficult week for a couple of reasons. We don't have to get into them. We won't get into them. But for that reason, I can say I did not get a lot of reading done at all. Actually, I mean, I did. I think the last time we spoke in a Friday Reads video, I was at about 52% in the audio that I'm listening to, which was and is The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. I am now, I think, at 84% of the audio, but I got to 84% like 2 days ago, and I have not made any progress since. Just stress and other things on my mind have meant that I haven't had a lot of capacity to listen. Got a lot of feedback from people who are also reading this in the month of November that they are really enjoying the book, and I am as well. When I talked to you on my last Friday Reads video, I mentioned that I feel like I keep hesitating before committing to whether or not I like this book because of the way it is and the way it's structured and where the story could be going. It feels like things could fall apart depending on how things develop. But so far at every stage, it has met and surpassed my expectations. So I'm still really enjoying this book. If you are unfamiliar, this is a Pulitzer Prize finalist. I believe it lost to The Orphan Master's Son by Adam Johnson, but don't quote me on that. But it was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. It plays with fantasy, but remains grounded in a sort of realistic world in a lot of ways, although there are elements of magic throughout. There's almost a question about whether or not there is something fantastical or magical at play in the book. So if you go into this expecting like high fantasy, magic, and things like that, you will be disappointed. It feels like a realistic book. But if you go in really, if you're not someone who likes fantastical elements at all or magical realism, this will also not be a book for you because there are elements of those things in here. Although magical realism is a bad way to describe this book because it sets up an expectation for something that's very different from the way this book feels like it plays out. It follows a couple, Mabel and Jack. They are described as getting older, although I think they're in their earlier mid-40s in the beginning of the book. There is a bit of a time jump later. And they had a baby, but it was stillborn. And grief over the loss of that baby, accompanied by a sense of feeling judged and criticized by the people around them, especially Mabel. Mabel is having a very hard time dealing with the loss of this baby and the sense of judgment that she, as a woman and as a mother, failed her husband, failed her child, failed her family by having a stillborn baby. They end up moving to Alaska. It's sort of at Mabel's behest. Like, she very much wants to leave their old life behind. So they end up in Alaska, and I think it's in the 1920s. Yeah, Alaska 1920s. And then again, there is a time jump later on in the book. So they get there, and Mabel is grieving. She's having a very hard time. Jack is working very hard on a homestead, trying to get them set up to succeed. There's a hard winter coming. And, they do have some neighbors who are helpful and supportive, but they are in many ways on their own in this rugged landscape in Alaska. And Jack and Mabel are having trouble communicating with each other. They really have not spoken about the grief that they have both had over losing their baby and how the way they live now is very different from what they expected when they met, when they got married, when they were growing up, because they had envisioned that they would be parents together. And that is not the way things turned out. So Mabel in particular is struggling. She doesn't really leave the house. She's in a rut, and Jack is carrying a very heavy load for both of them to survive in this environment that is very difficult. During this first winter, one night, in an act of sort of spontaneity, they have a little bit of a snowball fight and, spur of the moment, decide to create a snowman. And it's a very small snowman. So they refer to it as a snow child, and they decide that it's a girl. And they put a red scarf and red mittens on her. Jack carves a face into this snow child. In the morning, the snow child is gone. And they start to notice a little girl running through the periphery of the forest around the house, wearing the red scarf and the red mittens, and always with this little fox somewhere nearby her. And the snow child is gone. It's been destroyed. And there is a set of footprints walking away, but there are no footprints walking to it. So there's sort of like a question, like, is this a feral girl in the wilderness, or is this a magical snow child who came to life? And the story of the snow child, like the classic, like fairy tale of a snow child who comes to life, is known in this. Like Mabel in particular grew up with that story. So she is kind of aware of this story, and it makes her wonder if that is what is happening here. But they sort of, it's almost, it makes me think of Ira Levin, but without the horror tropes, because when you read The Stepford Wives without knowing the ending, when you read Rosemary's Baby without knowing the ending, the point of the book is almost questioning, like, is there something weird and supernatural or malicious or happening here? Or is this whole thing just imagined? And in this case, it's not something scary or malicious. It's something that might be a little bit magical. And I've really been enjoying this so far. As I said, I'm, I think 82 or 84% of the way through. So I should be done before the end of the month, but reading has just been very difficult this week. So we'll see how that goes and develops. But I fully expect that I will be able to finish it before the end of the month. And if I don't, it'll carry into December, and that's fine. If you have been reading along in the month of November, let me know your thoughts. Maybe tag it with The Snow Child if you're going to talk about spoilers, just so people can avoid them. And then I haven't finished the book yet, so I might avoid spoilers as well. But I'm really liking this so far. I'm so glad that I got a copy of the book. I'm so glad that I have finally gotten around to reading it. Eowyn Ivey also has a new book coming out in 2025 called Blackwood's Blue Sky, something like that. I have a copy of it on my shelf, but I'm feeling too lazy to go get it, even though it's probably somewhere like right about here. And you know what, whatever. Let's just do it. Yep, here it is. Blackwood's Blue Sky, which will be released on February 11th, 2025. And I've heard that this returns to Alaska and has a lot of the same things where it's sort of inspired by Beauty and the Beast. So it's inspired by a fairy tale or a myth, but is grounded in reality and realism. So I can't wait to finish The Snow Child. I can't wait to read Blackwood's Blue Sky. And by the way, I will have affiliate links to all of the books I talk about in the description box down below. If I spark an interest in any of these for you, you can use those, and it will give me a small kickback. Otherwise, visit your local independent bookstore. I am wearing my Montana Book Company Loudest Bookstore Ever t-shirt today. And we're hoping that we will make it over to Montana Book Company this weekend, but we don't know. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, otherwise you can support your library. And I just as a follow-up, I had mentioned last week that I had a problem where on Everand, I was supposed to have access to this on November 17th, and I didn't, so I had to cash in a credit on Libro. My problems with Everand have continued. We don't need to get into it. I don't want to be one of those people who just publicly complains about bad experiences with a company, except I'm kind of doing that right now. It's fine. It's fine. The other book that I have started and really not gotten very far into, but I suspect if and when I finally have time to sit down with it, I will end up reading it quickly. It's The Most by Jessica Anthony. This was on the long list for the National Book Award. And even before that, I had a hold on this because it just sounded really interesting to me. And it took forever to get this hold from the library. It finally showed up. And this book is actually overdue at the library. So if you are in Montana waiting for The Most by Jessica Anthony, I apologize. I'm the problem. I'm like a week past this book's due date at this point, but it should read very quickly once I am able to really sit down with it. I'm 40 pages in and really liking this book so far. It's only about 133 pages. So really all I need is a good morning to sit down with this, and I should be able to like tear through it. It's just a matter of getting that. And I don't even know if that will happen this weekend, because if we go to Montana Book Company and drive to Helena on Friday, I don't have a morning. Saturday, we want to get up and go to a glass show that's going to be like a craft thing that's going to be in Missoula. So I don't even know if I'm going to end up having a morning to sit and read. But if I do, I'll be able to finish this. And hopefully before the end of the month, when Joel and I will do our November wrap up and talk to you about what we've read. So the premise of this is that it's set in 1957. I cheated a little bit because the year is on the back. I knew it was the 1950s, but this family, you have the wife, who is Kathleen, her husband, Virgil. I cheated on the names by looking at the back again. They have just moved back to the town where they met and where Kathleen grew up after living in Rhode Island. And they started going to church every Sunday, and on the morning when this takes place, I believe it takes place over the course of about 8 hours, something like that. Yeah, set over the course of 8 hours. The most breaches the shimmering surface of a seemingly idyllic marriage, immersing us in the unspoken truth beneath. So Virgil gets up and starts getting the kids dressed for school, and Kathleen says she's not feeling well, so she's not going to be going to church. When they get back, she has changed into her red bathing suit and gotten into the pool in the apartment complex where they are living temporarily, and won't get out of the pool. And it sort of unspools the perspective. It doesn't first person shift between Kathleen and Virgil, but each chapter seems to swap back and forth between their perspective. Like the first chapter is Virgil getting up, hearing that Kathleen doesn't want to go to church, and him being almost kind of annoyed that he has to dress the two sons and take them and going to church and trying to get back quickly so he can go golfing. And then the second chapter is much more from Kathleen's perspective, again, without that first person narration of her getting up and what led her to the decision to put on a bathing suit and get into the pool. And then the next chapter goes back to centering on Virgil a little bit. And so far, it is fascinating. And I can't wait to see the way things play out in the rest of the book. So hopefully I'll have some time over the coming days to actually finish that. And then when I finish that, I don't know what my next audiobook is going to be. I have to finish The Snow Child first, and then I'll make a decision about what I'm going to do. I do have 2 books from the library, and one of them should be super quick, super duper quick. Susanna Clarke's The Wood at Midwinter. This, I believe, is set in the world of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, from the prize-winning author of Piranesi, an enchanting, beautifully illustrated short story set in the world of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So that sounds a lot of fun. And 19-year-old Meredith Scott is an unusual girl. She can talk to animals and trees, and she is only ever happy when she is walking in the woods. One snowy afternoon, out with her dogs and Apple the pig, Meredith encounters a blackbird and a fox. As darkness falls, a strange figure enters in their midst, and the path of her life is changed forever. Featuring gorgeous illustrations and an afterword by Susanna Clarke explaining how she came to write it, this is a mesmerizing must-have addition to any fantasy reader's bookshelf. And it's a really pretty foil cover. And it is a short story, and there are a lot of illustrations. I'm just going to try to see how many pages it is without spoiling anything. It's 60 pages, including that afterword from Susanna Clarke. And here is an example of one of the really stunning illustrations. There's another one. So if I have time, this should be a really easy book to sit down and finish in one sitting. So hopefully by the end of the month, I will have finished 3 books, but we're really running short on time. It's going to be a busy weekend with the holidays and everything else going on. Small Business Saturday will be coming. So hopefully if you have the means, you will be supporting small businesses on Saturday. So we'll see how much progress I make, if any, on getting these 3 done before the end of the month. If I don't finish them and they carry into December, it's fine. I also have Ready or Not, a young adult graphic novel by Andy Peretta with flats by Matt H. Taylor. The sticker from the library blocks all but the last name of the author. So this is a YA graphic novel. Again, should be really quick. But since we don't have a whole lot of time before the end of the month, and knowing that this is going to be a busy holiday weekend for me here in the US, I'm going to try to prioritize these before I get to Ready or Not. And there you go. That's everything that's been going on this week. I hope, again, if you are in the United States and you celebrate Thanksgiving or some version of it that's maybe less colonial, that you had a good day, that you had some good food, that you're feeling good. If the holidays are weird for you, I hope you found a way to enjoy this week and not feel stressed or triggered. And if you don't live in the United States, I just generally hope you're doing well. And with that, I will leave you and let you get back to your weekend. And as always, I really appreciate your time. I will be back. Until then, happy reading.